So in my life, I kind of was a pro wrestler, but I really wasn't. I guess is the best way to say it. And what it was is I joined a group called New Omega Wrestling. Now, New Omega Wrestling was really created by a couple of friends of mine who were really started out with a company called HBW. It was horrible backyard wrestling, and it was horrible. It was fun. That part of one of the things that we used to do was we used to go to my apartment or somebody's house. Usually, it was my apartment in California, and we watch how bad this wrestling was, and we get drunk and make fun of each other. That's just what we did, and it was fun because we always just would and. We did, I wasn't a part of HBW, but Matt, Zion, and a couple others, they did some pretty just crazy crazy stuff. It would not pass in the woke culture now. I mean, it just wouldn't. Even the stuff we did in Omega Wrestling would not pass now. So kind of what happened, just my journey in it, was I've always been a pro wrestling fan. And I was a pro wrestling fan. I didn't start until the 90s, in late 90s. I think 90, late, late 98, early 99 is when I first started watching pro wrestling. And what I watched, what really got me into it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, a lot of people my age will say how much Stone Cold Steve Austin probably was a great influence in their life. Now, Stone Cold Steve Austin also part was very negative because when I watched him, and I was like seventh, eighth grade, I saw the middle finger, he was cussing, and then that's where I learned all that stuff. Now, my parents, I heard it from them, but that's where I learned it from. But the one thing I got from Stone Cold was to be more independent, more don't be afraid all the time, stand up for yourself. And I really got that from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, kind of fast forwarding in like a little bit down the line, you know, after high school, I worked at a theme park called Raging Waters, and I really became a supervisor over there. And kind of a couple years, I was let go. I was fired. It was the first job I was ever fired from, and I just kind of moved on, and I started working at UPS at night. Now at UPS at nighttime, what you do is you're a loader and an unloader. I was an unloader there, and what it is you unload and load all the freights and of all the packages coming in, and you would load them in because most of those packages were going either across the state of California, that's where I was living at the time, or going across the country, and that's literally where most of your packages from UPS come from is in the big old big rigs that you see. Now, kind of what it was is I met Matt Zion there. Now, we went to high school together. We always passed each other, but we were never like the best of friends. And he kind of was like, hey, man, I started this group called New Omega Wrestling, and he gave me the whole story, kind of what I'm telling you guys now. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. He goes, well, maybe you should wrestle with us and you should join the group and this and that. I was like, no, dude, I don't want to do that. Just because, even though pro wrestling is fake, meaning that the moves are orchestrated and practiced, and the matches are predetermined. The moves still hurt. Learning how to fall hurts. It hurts. You cannot fake a chair shot. You cannot fake a table spot. You cannot fake a ladder spot. It hurts. That mattress, that it's not a mattress actually. The ring is a hard piece of wood. It's literally with this big old spring underneath it. That's it. It freaking hurts. Not even joking. And so we kind of went on from there. And they were like, okay, well, Matt's like, well, just come hang out with us. You don't have to wrestle. Just come hang out with us. We have, like he named like Tom Summers and Rebel. Like I went to high school with these guys, and they're like, you haven't seen him in a while, and and Sean Tech was there. He's running it, and this is his baby, and this is kind of his idea, and he goes, just to come see the guys. And Mike Gregory too. I did hang out with Mike Gregory a lot, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go and everything else. Well, Matt, when I showed up, like a week later, I think it was actually that Saturday or that Sunday, one of the two, and I was still living actually in my mom's house at the time. He he kind of was like, okay, Chris, you know, this is the reason why I mentioned the mom part is you'll kind of see. And I kind of, you know, he showed me around and he showed me their ring. Our ring at the time was 4 mattresses crushed together with big old pieces of chunky foam on top of it with a tarp, and we tucked it underneath. That was the ring. And the entrance ramp was this rug and this big old iron things, and we kind of made curtains and you would walk through it. That's it. Now obviously it's backyard wrestling. Obviously it's kind of just like us having fun and us kind of just hanging out, and all of us were pro wrestlers. I mean, pro wrestling fans. That's just what we were. Now, Matt, Zion, and Sean, and I believe Rebel or Mike Gregory went to pro wrestling school. Excuse me. Now, a lot of people may not know this. To be a pro wrestler, you do go to pro wrestling school. Look it up. Look it up. And they teach you how to fall. They teach you all the tricks. Well, Matt Zion, Mike Gregory, and I believe it was Mike Gregory, and Tech were like, we're just going to teach you guys from the ground up. And that's what they were telling me, and I was like, I'm still not in it. Well, Matt's like, okay, we're kind of going to go from this, and he took me to the back. And like area, I was like, this is where we're in, and that's where everybody would kind of stretch and it's not because where we would wrestle, this guy just had he had a couple acres of land, and it just kept going, and it was like a farm, and there was like horses there, and everything else. It was different. It was definitely a different area of San Dimas, California, because that's where we wrestle from. And Matt's like, well, if you were gonna wrestle, what song track would you get? And not knowing the fact that this guy named Ramel was walking to the ring, or this ring thing, right? And he was wrestling me. I had no idea. And then I said, I think I said, slip, not wait and bleed, but spit it out, right? And it goes, oh, okay. And he said, oh, hey, put Slipknot, spit it out on. They press play. All of a sudden that music hits. He goes, oh, Matt goes, oh, that's your song. Go ahead and go wrestle. I was like, wait, what? And that is my story of how I got in the ring. It was one of the worst matches ever because I had no idea what to do. I was winging it, and it looked awful. It was awful. And Sean was so nice about it. He goes, hey, it wasn't the worst rookie wrestling match I've ever seen. Oh my God, it was awful. And that was literally how I got into the ring. Now, the next thing I know is, because I took some bumps, I did get slammed pretty good to the ground and everything else. I, all of a sudden, was like, oh, shoot. And Matt knew what he was doing because Matt's like, hey, as soon as I get him in there, he's going to get the drug. And he's going to be like, not like drugs. He's just going to be like addicted to it. And he was right, because I was all in after that. And I would later bring in some other friends of mine. One was Mike Falcon. He went to high school with all of us, so the other guys knew him, but the other one his name was Static. I knew him from a different friend from a different high school, and he was a huge wrestling fan. And I told him about this, and he legitimately got hooked as well. And those two became some of the best wrestlers ever, and which I will tell later. But the main thing, the funny thing is, so I was literally after my adrenaline's settling down and everything else, and we would hang out and we do this. Well, all of a sudden, once your adrenaline goes down in wrestling or any sports, you start feeling it. Well, then all of a sudden I'm limping. All of a sudden my back hurts. All of a sudden this hurts and this hurts. I come home. My mom, who is a very strong Hispanic woman, was mad. And mad is a rated G of how she really felt. She gave me this huge lecture. I was going to hurt myself and everything else. But it was a passion that I love. And she got it. And she said, you make your own decisions. You're an adult. And I was 20 years old. I was just about to turn 21. And she just kind of left it from there. But that's my introduction of how I got into New Omega Wrestling. The next video, I will explain how I got Justin and Mike Falcon in there, and also try to split that up maybe into some of the worst injuries. That may be a separate video. But also, like in this journal that I'm gonna write, I also put in how I left, and how I left New Mega Wrestling. I wish I could take back.